This is iRacing.
Few racetracks in the world offer a figure-8 layout, but perhaps the most famous is Suzuka. Drivers will try their best not to get it twisted as we get ready for the Skip Barber Sim Series, and you'll see it all live here on iRacing and the Global SimRacing Channel. I am Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Jake Sperry. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. This Japanese circuit has a rich history behind it, so let's head to our track guide to learn more. Welcome to Suzuka Circuit, perhaps most famous for its hosting of the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix for much of the event's history. This track sees all sorts of racing besides that. In fact, this place began as a test track for Honda, but later proved to be a driver and fan favorite for competitive motorsports as well. The full layout of the Grand Prix course steals the show, but there's actually 5 different versions that can be run on iRacing. With their lap lengths ranging from just over 2 kilometers to nearly 6 kilometers, plenty of different types of cars can suit the track. GT racing and lower-level open-wheelers are quite popular, but motorcycles are also a staple here. Some of the corners have become world-renowned over the years. The S's are often cited as one of the great tests of a driver's technical prowess. Then, of course, there's Degners 1 and 2, which provide very little runoff considering their fast and narrow entry. Later on, the long backstretch leads up to the notorious 130R, which is blindingly fast. The Casio Triangle offers one last chance at an overtake if you're brave, but has been the scene of many drivers clattering into one another over the years. F1 fans will be quick to cite the infamous coming together here between Senna and Prost. However, real-life visitors will find it's more than the racing that provides some viewing pleasures. The unique ways in which the Japanese fans celebrate their favorite cars and drivers certainly capture your attention. But it's no wonder they're such fanatics, because who wouldn't be with one of the world's greatest tracks right in your backyard? Definitely a very technical track and higher powered vehicles, but we don't have the highest of powered vehicles here today, Jake.
No, we don't, and I think that's going to make this challenge so unique and interesting. It is a very technical opening sector to the lap at Suzuka. Believe it or not, they tried to put 3 figure-8s in this circuit when they initially proposed designs, but have settled on this one. Now, here in Mie Prefecture in Japan, which opened in 1962, a 17-turn circuit which has all of the hallmarks of the greatest opening sector in all of motorsport, leading to those 2 jutting right-handers of the Degners 8 and 9, and then the Nissan brake hairpin at 11, another overtaking place heading to Spoon at turn 13. But you've got great chances through the S-curves, turn 6, the Gyaku bank through Nippo corner at 7, and then of course you've got that massive run through to 130R and what is now known as the Astamo chicane at the end of the lap, which will be the last great place to go and get a move. I think today it's going to be all about who wants to place themselves in the right place for 10 racing laps.
Exactly. Not that many times around this circuit, with it being such a long lap for a car of this size. So you won't have as many opportunities as maybe you would like, but the draft should offer some up. We'll go over that in a bit. In the meantime, let's take a look at our race details for today's event. And as we mentioned, it is going to be 10 circuits around this place as we are in for round 3 as well. Round 4, excuse me. So drivers have gotten a chance to get used to one another in this community out here, although a lot of them have showed up today. Open setups in this series, which means drivers can try to tweak it to their liking. Granted, this car does not have a lot to it. It's very simple in what you can do to the car setup. They have a spare car in case they come into any sort of damage, so they can hop in, but there's no scheduled pit stop, so it's probably not going to be ideal. And one of the big changes compared to what this car used to see in real life when it was still competing is it's a standing start here in the sim. And you got to make sure you nail that start off the line to get that track position. And currently, I believe we are in the midst of the last bits of qualifying, which how long it takes the cars to get around here, it might be a bit tough to get both laps in.
It might do. In fact, we've just jumped in at the early stages here of qualifying with drivers really trying to haul to get their outlap sorted. So everybody's going to be on track looking for their opportunities to get their first lap times in on the board, including this driver on screen right now, number 2, Vlado Tito from Croatia, looking to really get the tyres up to temperature. Now, these are some tyres that do take a massive amount of punishment as they go through the laps, but do not expect tyre wear from them. I believe once upon a time, there was a 10-hour enduro done in the Skip Barbers, which was done by this wonderful league from some of the members of the 2K World Cup back in the day, so the likes of Philippe Liberari and De Freitas and co. And they one-stopped it on tyres.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, and I guess that makes sense since these were training cars. They didn't want to have to swap tires out each and every time, so probably made them pretty darn durable out there. As for who is looking good for this race, looking at some of the iRating out there, it's pretty hefty. In fact, I think the lowest that we've got out there is somewhere in the 3,000s. That's how many top-end drivers in this series have showed up.
Yeah, this is split twice, so you've got a huge opportunity to say, this is how I'm going to pick up my points. It's going to be a very select group of drivers at the front as we take a look then along this main front stretch to say, what can you do back over to the Astamo chicane and jamming on the brakes, looking through the right and the left. Setup's going to be important down the hill. You've got to get the power on as early as you can. This final corner is there and making progress, and you've just got to make sure that the car is lined up the best it possibly can. Diving downhill towards turn number 1, so it's a big chance to get an almighty launch on it as we are on board with the number 1 car in the servo, Alberto Senao, then, who dives into the first corner, which will feel flat with the braking done for the second corner, very aptly named, into turn number 2. But critically, it's about these S's and the small differences between them through turn 3, then in towards turn number 4, holding through the first part. Turn 5, you start to crest the hill a little bit more, and then comes the Gyaku bank where the camber falls away through the mid part of the corner. Turn 6, leading to Nippo at turn 7, the big launch around the left, which means the opening sector finds completion.
And that really shows you just how busy it is around the lap here. They will get a little bit of a reprieve here. So now heads up into the Degners and got to just lightly brush some of those curbs. He definitely takes it all the way to the edge before managing to sneak it through the banking of the second Degner. Of course, up into the infamous hairpin. This could be one of those spots where maybe you could sneak a pass.
You can if you get a good run out of Degner number 2. Because it's a 90-degree corner, it's very easy to have that jump through and have a chance to make it happen. You've then got the long right-hander of 200 right, the moto chicane there on the right-hand side, and it's all about taking the pass of least resistance through here. You've got to open up the opportunity. There'll be a small patch of tarmac on the right-hand side. Use that as your braking marker as you jump into Spoon Curve. It's a double apex left, which again falls off camber on the exit with the lakeside fishing ponds on the right-hand side, just behind those white barriers, down the hill, and you make that climb over the bridge here on what is known as the West Straight, the West Pits there on the right-hand side, and then the launch to the legendary and fearsome 130R. Miguel Cuenca, then the fastest driver with a what was a 225 flat. Jeff Randall goes quicker than that, out of 130R, move across the circuit, pick your braking marker here for the Astamo chicane to end the lap, end the flick, and then go through the last corner. Use your reference marker with the Ferris wheel there on the left-hand side, and Alberto Senao with a 24.9 to beat, sets a 2:26.4, I think was trying to warm the tyres up on that opening lap.
Does look like it, and he's put himself under the gun. If he does not get a clean second lap, he has barely enough time to get back around. Anybody who crosses the line from here will not be able to complete that second circuit. Jeff Randall looks like he is just coming out of the S's himself and up towards the Degner corners. He should have plenty of time to get back around to set a second lap. But our field of 18 separated by about 2.3 seconds, which is actually a little bit larger than I anticipated, but it is a long lap, so there's a lot of places you can make some difference.
And you got to remember as well, Joe, just how dependent this car will be on the draft. Because it is low power, a lot of where you gain that time back up is through slipstream, and around a circuit like this, I reckon you could gain a second to a second and a half through the various areas of this circuit to keep yourself in range. You've got Ivan Alesiuk Ayuso in third position, Philip Burke for America in fourth, Matt White in the Matt White car in fifth position, the number 11. So there are some great times that are coming through. Randall working his way then through Spoon Curve, and he's been really chucking it through the corners. And I found that so interesting back at Egno 1 that he just had the car sideways, working on the trail brake to get through.
Right now, I think the first car that's going to come across on this second lap is going to be Sanchez in the number 7, but we're watching our current pole sitter, who's not too far behind him. There is Sanchez down through the chicane and up to the end of it in that nice old Jordan livery that he's sporting on the car. Do love the creativity that these drivers manage to translate onto these machines. His second lap is going to be an improvement up to the pole. So yes, it does look like getting the tires up to temperature is going to be key.
Yep, so in that sense, it's a massive, massive moment where that works. Miguel Cuenca then on control, though, with a 224.4. Randall could only manage a 24.6 out there. Philip Burke goes 12,000 shy in second position as Vlado Tito puts it to the top from nowhere. A 224.435. There's the times getting close.
I think Tito's first lap did not count, so that one was so important as he just snuck it in the end. And Alberto Senao, I don't think, got that second lap. He's only 11th, despite having the highest I rating of anybody in here. So looks like we've got time to go through our starting grid of 19 cars here today. And a little bit of a surprise in our order up at the front. As we said, Vlado Tito will start on that pole position. Miguel Cuenca Martin will be next to him. Philip Burke starts from third as Jeff Randall's good enough for fourth in the end. Sanchez in fifth will be flanked by Benji Reig. And you've got Pablo Hoglar in seventh. Ivan Ayuso starting in eighth. Gonza Aguilar will be starting in ninth. And Brandon Crosta rounds out your top 10.
Over the page then, Alberto Senao will have to go from 11th. Matt White couldn't get a second lap in. He'll have to go from P12 with Peter Suapanki, the Finn, and Jesus Cabal in 14th. Bruno Santamaria will have Alexi Tapiavico in 16th position alongside with Yuri Pujoreyu in 17th and Marcel Tenkopol in 18th. The last time was set by Dave Dowson, who will have to go from 19th position on a 2:27.2.
How much can he use that slipstream to try and leapfrog his way up? There's going to be chances. He's just going to have to be very careful in certain sections of the track, as no doubt it will get a bit frantic at times, especially up into 130R as everybody pulls a huge run up the hill into that left-hander. I think we're just waiting on Burke, Crosta, and Senao here, and then we should be good to go to start this race early in the morning as well. We must say, just past 8 a.m. in the sim. That's why we were seeing the sun pretty low in the horizon coming down the front straight, which could affect the visibility on some of our drivers. Everybody is now lined up on the grid, so we start to hear the engines rev as we get ready for round 4 here at Suzuka. Waiting for the lights, and there it is. Green flag is out. Vlado Tito gets a good launch off the line as drivers immediately try to swap to the inside for some of those in the back. Look at some of them going all the way towards the grass, maybe covering off with a bad start and down into turns 1 and 2. There's definitely a few aggressive drivers trying to go 3 wide. They make room as they siphon their way out to the S's, but it's a battle for the lead now, Jake.
Yeah, Miguel Cuenca was so aggressive at turn 2. He had the march on Vlado Tito, and through the S's, you're going to have to fall into line. Tito holds himself steady. Cuenca in second. Burke is third. Randall fourth. And then the Porsche All-Star, Javier Sanchez, Heike 360 ES, puts himself up into fifth position. It's side by side for seventh with Ivan Alesiuk Ayuso, and it's contact, and Ayuso is going to turn Benji Reig around, comes back across the circuit. That causes avoidance for Santa Maria, and in the grass goes Tenkopol in avoidance. He just about gets away with one.
So only one car was sent to the back there. Alberto Senal may be involved in a bit of an incident that continues on into the second. Degner and more cars as Aguilar also looking slow, trying to recover, but he pulls it off to the side. He must have damage.
Yeah, Gonza Garcia there, really slow. It creates a huge chain reaction as he was stuck on the outside, making no progress. It is a one-line suits all corner when you get to Degner 1. He was naturally going to wash out. Alberto Senal was stuck on the outside, so nowhere to go for Senal, who had to just hold on and hope that he wasn't going to get much damage. So that has taken the mid part of the field into trouble. Jeff Randall we go on board with here, and they are queuing up here out of Spoon to get a run. You've got Burke eyeing up Cuenca Martin, eyeing up Vlado Tito, and it's an uphill climb with a crosswind today across the main front straights.
Looks like Martin's going to have the speed. He'll be able to get ahead by the time they get to 130R. Anybody going to try too wide into here? Not in this group. They go back to single file, but it's a switchback from Tito. He is going to duck around the outside, coming up to the final chicane, but he's going to have to break deep as they go 2 by 2 by 2. Noah's Ark down into the corner. I don't think it's going to stay the way, coming off as the leaders come together. Top 3, top 4, all have contact.
And they just have to scamper away, somehow avoiding all of that with Xavier Sanchez. It gives Philip Burke the lead. Ivan Alesiuk Ayuso moves to third, and many drivers now will be jumping down into the pits. Now, they do have one fast repair out there as they go 3 wide across the front, and that is Brandon Truster then making that look on the outside with some moves there. Pablo Rodriguez Hoglar in the middle of that. Alberto Senal, but critically it's Alexi Tapia Vico who gets out of it. A crazy end to the opening lap, and it shows you how fine the lines are when you race around Suzuka.
Looks like Martin, Tito, and Randall all had meatball flags from that incident. Had to immediately jump across into pit lane to take care of it. Philip Burke now our leader, Sanchez in second, Ayuso sitting in third as we watch this battle for P4. Vico ahead of the side-by-side Trasta and Oglar.
Well, Alexi Tapia Vico started this race in 16th position. He is now sat in 4th after a lap and a third, Joe. That is staggering.
Not the kind of progress I was expecting, but man, that was a frantic first lap with multiple incidents. Very atypical for this series, especially in the top split. Usually the driver's pretty good about staying out of trouble and waiting to the end to get aggressive. Not today, while we watch back from Alexis at Hoglar, Trasta, Senal, all chasing.
They're all there, they're all in the line, and they know they've got to try and hold on because they're at 7/10 to Ivan Alesiuk Ayuso in third position, who is at risk of being dropped here by the top two. Xavier Sanchez and Philip Burke have an opportunity to run away. We talk about the rubber band. It's about 1.5 seconds it fully snapped. At 1 second, you get enough tension that the slipstream is not as good as it was. Up the hill goes Senal, who sits then between Jesus Cabal and Brandon Truster. They're in position, but it's in front of him. Pablo Rodriguez moving to get 1, moving to get 2 around Alesiuk and moving up to third. And there goes the spin. Jesus Cabal.
Oh, he's going to lose a lot of time, and he's in a dangerous position as another car goes off just in front. That's Trasta, who finds himself having to cut the course. He'll give that time back now, and that's going to be costly if he loses this group.
Yeah, he's got the slowdown penalty to serve as they go side by side for the race lead. They've got to get themselves organised now in that second group, because the moment they start fighting amongst themselves, they'll say at the front, well, we're going to just work together in tandem until lap 10 and break away. Xavier Sanchez leads this field. Philip Burke now into second, and some side-by-side running as Alesiuk Ayuso has really dropped down the times as he's now found himself mired in the middle of this pack. Senal trying to work a way through.
So let's take a look at the replay here of what happened coming into the chicane on the first lap. This is on board with Randall, and unfortunately he was kind of an innocent victim on this one. Just no place to go, sent up into the air.
did everything right, positioned himself for the way to go around, but the track just completely jammed. He had to scramble into the gravel to avoid all of it, so he just got very unlucky there, as there goes Brandon Traster on the back of this group, working hard then through the Degners as we find ourselves into lap 3 now here of 10. And I think that Alexi Tapia Vico has got to get the message here to Pablo Rodriguez Joglar in 3rd position. We need to work together, we need to chase down Sanchez and Burke, and we need to give ourselves opportunities to win this race. They can't sit down and just fight amongst themselves. The moment they go too wide through every corner under the sun here at Suzuka, they're going to build a second each and every single time they do so. Half defensive line taken by Pablo Rodriguez into Spoon Curve, and that will cost a bit of time. You can see already 0.2 of a second lost by that line alone.
Top spots as Vico is going to get the spot over Joglar. That's going to move him up into 3rd, but they are firmly out of the slipstream of our top 2. Burke and Sanchez do seem to be working well together right now. Do they have the speed to keep ahead of this next group? There they are, just flashing past us.
And a massive lockup comes through from Alexi Tapia Vico, and again that opens up the door then for that gap to expand. Philip Burke and Javier Sanchez know it. 2.4, 2.5, a 24.8 from Sanchez. Fastest lap of the race. Pablo Rodriguez will move through for turn 1. You've just got to make the passes clean. This is what happens with lower category formula. When you're racing, you've got to think like a super speedway driver. It's very, very good. You need intuition to make it happen. Alberto Senao through on Ivan Alesiuk Ayuso then to make that pass, which dropped Ayuso down to 6th position, and critically for Senao, back into P number 5.
Feel like it's not just the intuition, but also you need to have a little bit of give and take out there between your fellow competitors. It's a different style of racing, and you need to know when it is worth that risk and when you need to maybe just sit back and let the race come to you. Speaking of which, the race is almost halfway over already. We're partway through lap 4. And like we said, it seems like the leaders have got themselves a decent margin, as it does look like it's gone up slightly up to now to 2.4, almost 2.5 seconds at times. That's going to be bad news for 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Yes, and the way this race has gone through the opening couple of laps, everybody outside of the 8th and 9th place battle between Dave Dowson and Marcel ten Koppel are just 5 seconds away from everybody else. It's pretty much a case of a litany of drivers just trying to finish off this race at this point for everyone else. But here comes the look, a little thought to the inside on Philip Burke. Does Philip Burke have on Javier Sanchez? Doesn't quite get that one to work, but tries off for the exit of the corner, and again looking for that launch. And this is going to be a very interesting scenario, because I would argue whoever's second out of Spoon has got the best opportunity to go and win this race. The issue is, who wants to be second out of Spoon by the time they get there? By lap 8, if they build themselves enough of a gap, they can start playing chicken with each other and say, no, I don't want it here. Big move over to the inside, a little out of sorts there from Philip Burke, hits the brakes and can't find a move here at the Astamo chicane.
Yeah, from onboard, it probably didn't look as dramatic as it did from offboard, because, my goodness, he was very sideways. A little bit like that, as Cabal did not save it. And that does look like, as he actually had contact. I didn't see that before. Really unfortunate. I was going to say that outside curb does look to be a bit dangerous to straddle.
It very much is, and that's part of iRacing's curb updates that they've done over the last couple of seasons, Joe, where they've got those curbs on a sawtooth now, and so the higher that curb is, the more likely you're going to start spinning in the wrong direction for it. So it is a dramatic bit of work if it does start to go wrong for you on the curb.
Back to our 2 leaders. Sanchez still holding the lead, but I did notice that Burke gave quite a bit of a lift coming down the West Straight. I suspect he's trying to play the game and hold on until the end to see if he can get a good slipstream. What's happened with Matt White? He's our latest victim of that curb. He slides to the inside, though, and he keeps it out of the barrier critically.
Yeah, he needed to, and with that slide, he was just about able to avoid any further dramas. So that keeps him on the straight and narrow and keeps him in 11th place for this moment in time. The work that's been done here by first and second has forced the likes of third and fourth together, and then it's a case of a rotating, I would say, visage, fifth, sixth, and seventh that have now dropped back 1.2 seconds. So Ayuso, Sanao, and Krasta all have work to do to get back to Pablo Rodriguez Joglar and Alexei Tapia-Vico. So this is going to be where the race is on for the top five, because they will desperately want to stay with those drivers who are losing about 2 to 3 tenths of a second a lap on your leading duo.
To extend that gap now over 3 seconds back to P3. These two have played their cards excellent. These two, though, I think have given up on hopes of that win unless something dramatic happens, because they've been fighting back and forth all race long. Vico versus Joglar. Right now, looks like Pablo holds that spot. He does take a little bit of a dangerous straddle of that curb on the exit as those behind him. Sanao doing his best not to lose too much iRating in this one, being the number one driver out on track, has gained 6 spots since the start. So doing pretty decently, but this might be where his climb stalls out a bit.
It definitely looks that way, unless he can really work in the slipstream. 1.2 seconds back over the line. Heike with another fastest lap of the race then for him, and so he'll be certainly smiling about that into the first and second corners once again. And they're going to have to figure out what they want to do here and where they want to be, because they've just got to get the fastest driver on the front of the train so that they can charge through the corners. And there's no better driver to put on the front of the train than the driver with the highest iRating in the entire field. It will indicate that he is a very quick driver.
But as we saw in qualifying, sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. Granted, there could have been some extenuating circumstances on that. Trasta here just following in the tail of this train, sitting in 7th spot of everybody. Ayuso just in front, kind of sandwiched between the pair as they head through the Degners. Once again, you can see with the lower speeds, these cars can race a lot closer together than what you see from most open wheelers that try to compete here at this track. He stays with them, but no pass attempt into the hairpin.
No, but you can get the drive off the exit. Very heavy on the curb goes Ivan Ayuso, really working here to try and shorten that path of resistance to attack off of the exits of these corners. And I think they know they're playing for third at best at the moment, just over the halfway stage of this race, with the likes then of Alexei Tapia-Vico and Pablo Rodriguez changing places. They're now 4 seconds adrift at the moment, and the difference is stark. 24-1, 24-2 for your leading duo. Then it was a 25-1, 25-2, and they're doing 25-4s in that next group. So a second on that last lap. That's a bitter pill to swallow if you're there in third.
Without a doubt. I'm sure there's going to be some annoyance and some fresh frustration in this one. That said, for Vico being up 13 spots, I don't think he'll be too disappointed with a podium after that qualifying, as the leaders crest out of the chicane and onto the main straight once again. Like you said, a long ways ahead. There we can see the distance between themselves and P3 and P4. Philip Burke takes another fastest lap, having swapped around with Sanchez, this time into the first corner. Philip almost looking like he put his wheels into the grass a bit on the turn-in.
Well, he's definitely going to be very aggressive through the opening corner. He knows he's got to take the path of least resistance, and he's managing it here. Take a look at it from the rear. He is tapping every single curb apex that he can get his hands on, which doesn't actually form part of the racing circuit. The white line forms the circuit. The curb is just there to protect the grass on the inside from being overly used. Same as you can see on the outside. It's shallower from Xavier Sanchez. Heike knows every which way he wants to go and make this pass. He doesn't have to at the moment. He just wants to try and drive within his limits, keep himself in this race and give himself a shot on the final lap. And he knows how good Philip Burke is. He's got a better iRacing than him. It's 7 place 4 in terms of this split. But behind them, they've got the gap. Alexei Tapiavico, they're working so hard to keep that gap at 1.8 seconds. It is agonizingly close to going over 2 seconds, and that's a moral drop when you get to that sort of place.
No doubt they'll be very aware of the distance needed to try and feel that slipstream from the car ahead. So now still in 6th, now behind Uso's managed to get by him in recent laps. Not sure if we're going to see an attempt coming into Spoon. I would think we'll see Alberto maybe try and save it for the run out. So important to try to get the car lined up for here. Look how close Brandon is coming to that gearbox, and actually it looks like maybe it held him up a bit.
Well, Craster wants to try and work his way forward. Alessio Cayuso's got himself exactly where he wants, but he knows as well Alberto Senao isn't going to sit down and take this one without a fight. We've seen him in the Lotus 79s have a very good run, but Alberto Senao, he's really come out of the woodworks this season and decided he's going to race anything and everything he can get his hands on. Onto the brakes then for the Astamo chicane, knowing that they will cross the line onto lap 8, which will give them just 3 laps more opportunity to figure this out. And it's a great run by Senao, not going to go to the bump draft. It's going to choose to just fly on by and get the pass done. And it's getting busy 8th, 9th and 10th as well, because Dave Dowson and Marcel Tenkopol suddenly are going to have Benji Reg alongside for company.
It's a little bit of a swap around in front of this group, as well as a swap around for Senao. Riding on board with Brandon once again, trying to stick close to them. And as we have been hinting at before, you might want to be in this position. We've seen cars easily get huge runs and be able to pass 2 vehicles on that final stretch up into 130R. So this could be Brandon just kind of biding his time.
I think this is very clever here from Brandon Craster at this stage. I think he's just kept himself out of trouble, realizes what this race is. Don't do anything too untoward as you go about, and just keep yourself on the steady and the level. Now, one of the keys here to why Ivan Alesiuk has dropped back so much, look at that front right wing there, Joe. It is bent up, and so he is going to be really struggling with downforce levels. You don't get much in a Skip Barber, but that's enough to stop some moves.
Exactly, and it's not really the downforce so much as the aerodynamic efficiency. These cars so sensitive without much power beneath them. You will see drivers lose multiple miles an hour top end if they damage the wings on this car, or just generally the bodywork of this vehicle. So he might have a difficult time now that he's given this spot up to Alberto. As we come back to our top 2, Burke versus Sanchez.
Burke's front wing.
Oh, does he also
That's
have...
also bent up in exactly the same way. That would have come through in his legendary avoidance of what was going on at the end of lap number 1. So he is driving very much with a disadvantage.
And each and every time, my goodness, he is right up to the edge of the track. You can see a little bit of dirt and dust getting kicked up as he goes to turn into many of these corners. He's using every inch and then some. And Ayuso has fallen back for some reason. He is down in 10th. And this looks like somewhere out of 130R potentially.
He has. He's just dropped it all on his own out of 130R. He was very close behind Senao. He slightly missed the apex. He caught the sawtooth and the AstroTurf. I think it grabbed on the inside tyre of his right-hand side, and that has just sent him spiraling out of the top 5 battle. You can see there, he's just grabbed the curb with the outside rear, and that is enough to send the car spinning.
So many G-forces going through the cars at that moment. No wonder it's cost a few drivers the direction they need coming off that turn, and unfortunately cost them positions because of that in the end. 2 laps to go now. We asked whether or not they would have the distance to maybe try to battle one another, and I'd say they do. 4 seconds. I still wouldn't try it this lap, though, Jake, but next lap around, I think they are free to race.
I think it's very much a case of Xavier Sanchez will not make a move on this lap. I think he'll sit back, he'll wait, he'll force Philip Burke to the front, and then he'll find the right place on the last lap to make that move. If I was Xavier Sanchez, you've done the hard work. You've got yourself the right position, and you've got yourself the gap. Now go exercise it.
Curious what his chat is talking about right now. How excited are they about potentially seeing their man come home with a win as we ride on board with the Heike Seat 360 streamer and coming around out of Spoon. Let's see. Will Philip Burke try to play games? Will he allow him through? Or is Sanchez even going to attempt to go through? He's got to run. He's going to poke his nose out, and he is thinking about maybe going, but he lifts.
And that is something we definitely expected. No move to be had, no move to be seen. They are changing about for third behind as Alexi Tapiavico covers off Pablo Rodriguez. But these drivers at the front, Heike's given himself the position. Now he's got to go and execute.
White flag being held aloft by Barney here at the main straight. 1 to go. Remember, it is an early finish line at this track. They do it F1 style with the way it is scored. So it is not the run to there. It is the first line that they approach that will determine who is the winner in this race. You can't afford to try and snipe them at the very end, though I have seen it done. Down through 1 and 2. No change as Sanchez continues to play the follower.
And Brandon Krasler has also dropped down because he's had a massive hit through 130R. He's gone spinning around on the curb. Senau with nowhere to go. And that takes them out of the top 5, which puts Benji Reg into the top 5 ahead of Dave Dowson. So that a huge change that's gone on just on the penultimate lap to go. And Xavier Sanchez now sits right on the rear of Philip Burke and says, when is my moment? When is my time? Looks with a massive run heading to Degner, but has to lift.
This means that we now have 2 drivers in the double digits on positions gained, which is impressive in a top split with only 19 drivers. As once again, things get a little bit tight here. Look at the car control as Sanchez has to correct little slides coming up into the hairpin. Is this a legitimate move? Is he just trying to get a mistake out of Burke?
Well, that was very defensive by Philip Burke, and I don't think he needed to. He must have got the call from the spotter saying, car on your right, and that forced him to defend. Look at it through 200 right, trying to prise open the position with a crowbar. He'll go to the outside of Spoon to get that launch, but now he'll need to drive through the second part. It's off camber through here, so wisely, Sanchez is going to back out, try and cut up the exit, get the drive up the hill, and Philip Burke immediately moves over to the inside to try and cover the position up over the hill. It is side by side, and here comes Heike.
Oh, they make a little bit of contact. It's coming up to 130R with the drivers wheel to wheel, and Burke is coming back at him. He's got the shorter distance. It's the dangerous line for Sanchez. He keeps it from straddling the curb. Now it's going to be a game of chicken coming into the final chicane. Burke is going to have to deal with the outside this time. And again, it switches back. He does not have the run. He tries to cut back, but Sanchez has the nose ahead as they come to the line. It is just enough, and Sanchez will take the win.
That was critical. It was all about the pinch. At the second part, it was shallow as they went through, and there was nothing Philip Burke could do. Alexi Tapiavico will take the last spot on the podium, and what a recovery from Benji Reg to go and get a top 5 out there overall. More drivers driving for the line. Top 10 battle between Sanao and Krasta then hold themselves for 9th and 10th. But a day in which almost everybody ran into troubles. It was Sanchez and Burke who were the 2 that said, I am going to be the cleanest driver. And the 2 teammates then working together on the final lap, Peter Suapanki and Jeff Randall.
Randall is very much a case of what could have been. Started from 4th, looked like he had quite a bit of speed at the start of this race, but just got tangled up in all the mess and is going to swap once again with Peter as the 2 of them trade position. The Finn just allowing the Brit through, and doesn't look like he's going to fight him back for that spot here at the finish line. And that is going to be our last 2 drivers fighting for position. I think the last one to actually cross is going to be Aguilar in the number 10, quite a ways behind them. Well then, that gives us a chance to take a look at our results for today's event. And Xavier Sanchez manages to give himself another victory, but it was by 1/10 of a second over Philip Burke. Alexis Tapiavico, we'll just go through this verbally, it was third as Hoglar was fourth, Benji Reg was in fifth, and Dave Dowson was sixth. From there, Ivan Ayuso, P7, Marcel Tenkoppel was eighth, and Alberto Sanau only ninth for him. He'll lose some iRating today, no doubt. Brandon Crosta rounds out your top 10.
Over the page, it was a huge incident for Miguel Cuenca Martin, along with Vlado Tito, that put him in all sorts of trouble. 11th only for him, with Matt White in 12th place. Bruno Santamaria is 13th, ahead of Jesus Cabal, who had a spin at 130R. Jeff Randall was also caught up in that, as Peter Suapanki, he will just beat to the line. Last finisher of the race was Gonza Garcia Aguilar, your two retirees. Vlado Tito out then with the contact on the opening lap, and a non-starter for Jordi Pujol-Reu.
I'll be honest, I get the sense that Sanchez played Burke like a fiddle on that last lap, and not the way that I expected, Jake. You notice how he forced him to the inside going into Spoon Curve, and then suddenly he backed out of it. So he forced Philip into a tighter line when he needed that corner exit, and then opened it up for himself. I think that was a big moment right there. That was 4D chess.
It was 5D chess with time travel mechanics. It was very much a sense of a race where you've got to outthink the drivers around you. We talk about this car and this series being one where you've got to be a thinking driver. You've got to be thinking at every point, I am never going to have the power to just deliberately run away. The slipstream's too strong. So you have to be crafty. You have to be clever about the way you go and construct an overtake. And I think it was so brilliant there from the likes of Xavier Sanchez. Yeah, he pinched him down at Spoon, but he also had to pinch through the Astamo chicane. If he doesn't get that pinch correct through the second part of that chicane there, Joe, he does not get the run, and he gets bumped to the outside, and that would have been Philip Burke's race.
Well, that was today's race, but we got more of them coming later. The next one out is going to be at Oulton Park, and that's going to be on October 16th at 2:15 p.m. Eastern. And that is with only one of the chicanes, too. So that should be fun, seeing them try to work their way into a good pass down there without Britons to slow them up. Jake, an absolute joy again to get to call these, although a bit frantic at the start, atypical for this series on the top split. They put on a good show for the rest of it.
They absolutely did, but you got to remember, incidents are a part of racing. These drivers are human. They're not going to be able to sit down and say that we will drive every single race clean and we'll have a 10-pack challenge at the end for the race victory. It just doesn't work like that in sim racing. Sometimes you do have the big incident at lap one, and it does create divisions in the field, but you have to give credit to those who are in the right place at the right time, who can avoid those incidents, build margins against those who can't get themselves organized, and then give themselves a shot of victory. And that's what we saw today at the front.
Indeed. Well, that's going to close us up. So a big thank you, of course, goes to the Skip Barber community, as well as to our team today, Jake, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to subscribe both to iRacing and to GSRC so you don't miss a moment. Be sure to check out many of the other broadcasts coming up on each channel. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
This is iRacing.